Soldiers could be brought into the fight to curb truck attacks on major roads across the country. Country still under the national state of disaster, soldiers are still active, even under lockdown level 1. Police Minister Bheki Cele says if needs be, SANDF members will be asked to assist in dealing with truck attacks. Reporters Barry Bateman and Siphamandla Goge have been following the story for us. They spoke separately to Ministers Cele and Mbalula. They join me live now. Hi to both of you. Barry, I'm going to start with you. Did Minister Cele clarify what the procedure would be when deploying members of the army to deal with truck attacks? And is it an absolute certainty that that's going to happen?
Well, Sally, he spoke in broad strokes about what it would entail. You must remember we are still under the state of disaster. And it is through the Disaster Management Act that the President was empowered to be able to recall the South African National Defence Force without having to go through Parliament. Ordinarily, I mean, this is a constitutionally prescribed process that if the SANDF is to be deployed to do policing duties that is ordinarily carried out by the SAPS, there is a process to go through Parliament to be able to recall them. Not so under the state of disaster. It's made it a lot easier. So in this instance, it would be quite simple in terms of time and procedure to be able to get the SANDF to provide that support role to the SAPS. They would be in very much the situation that, or the support role that they provided during the national lockdown. Just an interesting note, Sally, we got wind of this on Wednesday night already, and you'll recall it was President Cyril Ramaphosa who issued that statement condemning the attacks and certainly making it quite clear that there should be action. Now, we understand that that night there was a meeting, senior SAPS, all the top brass, and it was at this meeting that the proposal to recall the SANDF to provide this role was put on the table. There have been talks with the various stakeholders since then, being led by Labour Minister Thulas Nesi, being the Labour Minister. This is considered primarily a Labour matter given the truckers and so on. But that is where we are. It is now in the final stages of discussion. Whether or not it will actually happen, we still don't know yet. But take a listen to Minister Bheki Cele and hear his position on whether he feels this should happen or not.
The SANDF have not been taken back. Remember, the Disaster Management Act is still there, level 1. Yes, soldiers are there. If it needs be, we are in position to deploy the members of the South African National Defence. And fortunately, the situation we are in, it doesn't need to start from the beginning. Start the beginning, it's Minister of Police going to the Minister of Defence, going to the President. But now, the National Commissioner of the South African Police Service can speak with the head of the Defence Force. I think those meetings have already taken place. If it needs be, if there is a need coming up, that I think and I understand myself and I agree that you'll have to deploy it that way.
All right, so we're just really waiting to hear if they agree that it's something that should be done. How exactly it would work, of course, would be an entirely different matter because, of course, these trucks are constantly in transit. But now, Siphamandla, I want to catch up with what you found out from the Minister of Transport also around these truck attacks. What did he have to say?
Well, tough talk from Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula, or should I say tough talk rather. He's basically saying criminals will be dealt with. It's something that we have heard in the past, but it's not something new, the attacks on these trucks. They've been going on for years in South Africa, in KwaZulu-Natal in particular, on the N3. Since March this year, more than 80 trucks have been torched. Some people have been calling for Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula to come and speak about this issue. They've been saying he's been missing in action on the issue of these trucks being torched. It's something that he denies, but he does concede that they are worried, they are concerned about what is happening in the freight industry because it has a potential and it has already crippled the South African economy. But he seems to suggest that this is a labour matter that must be dealt with by his colleague, that is the Labour and Employment Minister, Thulas Nesi. But we know that President Cyril Ramaphosa did issue out a statement on this matter, and then there was that meeting comprising of Minister of Home Affairs, Transport, Police, as well as State Security, and they are expected to put together a report to table it to the President. But Minister Fikile Mbalula is adamant that they will be able to deal with the issue. Let's listen to him.
We are worried and we are doing something about it. has been acts of violence. Violence cannot be allowed in resolving whatever concerns people are having. The matter at hand is a labor issue. It's a labor matter, and we were convened by Minister Thula Singesi. We condemn the acts of violence in the strongest possible terms, and we commit ourselves to doing everything in our power to get the culprits who are hell-bent on touching the trucks. That has got serious ramifications and implications for our economy from the point of view of logistics and the transportation of goods, services in our country. So we are working together in the ministerial committee and together with the affected region, which is KZN, and the Premier in that, and law enforcement, to deal decisively with the criminal element. The act of violence is a criminal act, and it will be met with the wrath of the law to bring the perpetrators to book. It will not be tolerated, and will nip it in the bud. But all the other challenges that we're faced with, we are committed to working in the context of the Interministerial Committee to do away with all these things.
Right, so the Transport Minister making the point that ultimately there's a labour issue that needs to be dealt with. But Barry, just back to you, because as he says, it is a criminal issue. Has the Police Minister given you any indication when a decision might be made to deploy the army to try and make sure that trucks are kept safe on our roads? And what is the latest on any arrests? We know that earlier this week, tragically, a truck driver was murdered.
On that first question, Sally, of when, the Minister couldn't say. He says this is an operational issue, so it would fall to the National Police Commissioner and the General of the SANDF to make those decisions and ultimately make those announcements. And also, it's not yet clear whether, in fact, they will be deployed. So we don't know as yet, but if you listen to Minister Bheki Cele, he seems to be suggesting on the side, or leaning towards having this deployment being done. On the issue of arrests, and Minister Mbalula making it quite clear that yes, while there is the aspect of the labour, there are criminal acts being carried out here. And those must, the police must investigate those and take the necessary steps to ensure that the perpetrators are held to account. Minister Bheki Cele is saying there have been a number of arrests. Over the last 24 hours, there's been a significant uptick in the number of patrols and units on the roads these main logistics routes have been affected. And so there does appear to be that kind of response that has resulted in some investigation and arrest. But just have a listen to Minister Bheki Cele, and he sets out what those developments are.
South African police, whether it's a question of foreign nationals or criminality, we need to work on that. We have tried to put our forces on the road. If you look for at least last 24 to 48 hours, we have been really on top of the situation. We have arrested 25 people. Some of them, I think 5 out of those, have received the bail. But I'm also glad that there are 5 people that were arrested in July wave in KZN who are still inside, have not received the bail, which means all segments, including the prosecution, were beginning to realize how serious the issue of this truck banning, which is an economic sabotage more than any other thing.
Economic sabotage, indeed. And that, of course, was our Police Minister, Bheki Cele, ending that report by Barry Bateman and Siphamandla Goge. Thanks to both of you.